Well, hello, everybody. This is Reverend Karen. Welcome to Fearlessly Feral Living, your wonderful podcast that's devoted to practical application of spiritual principles in our lives. This week, we are talking about step 2 of treatment. This is part of a 4-part series, even though there's 5 steps in treatment. Today is week 2. It is called What Do I Want? No, it's called Who Am I? What Do I Want is next week. It is called Who Am I? And last week, the first step of treatment was What is God? And so this is week 2. And our mission at Fearlessly Feral Living, of course, is to provide a strong and an unshakable inner foundation that works for long-term successful living. Our purpose is to activate inner self-awareness, and our vision is a world in which everyone lives wild and free. And so before I get started with the topic of today's podcast, I just want to share with you a little bit about what's going on with me. This is something new that I've been doing on my podcasts, and I've got some pretty exciting stuff going on. So today is, as I'm recording this, it's July the 22nd. And on Friday, I leave for Bakersfield to the Center for Spiritual Living Bakersfield. And I've been going there for a full year. This is my last weekend with them. My contract ends at the end of the month. And I'm excited for and with them. In the last year that I've been working with them, they've grown. They've done some beautiful things as a community. They continue to do beautiful things. And they don't have a new minister yet, although they're searching, and their application is up on the main CSL website. But in the meantime, they're doing just fine, and they're ready to spread their little wings, or their big wings. Actually, they're quite big wings. So I'm very happy for them. The other thing I'm really excited about is that, I've been down for quite a while. I've been a little depressed for quite a while. I haven't had the energy that I'm accustomed to having for quite a while. And I've done a lot of inner work around that area. But the thing that worked the best was treatment. I'm telling you guys, this stuff works. Treatment works. So lately, I've been asking my prayer partners in treatment to support me in being enthusiastic and energetic and doing what is mine to do. And so I'm really enthusiastic and energetic right now, and I'm feeling so grateful for that and so happy for that. And as soon as I'm done with Bakersfield and I get back to town and I'm settled in out here at the Woogie Ranch in rural northern Nevada, where I'm a half an hour away from the nearest gas station and the nearest grocery store, I'm going to get back to work on my third book. And I've got so many wonderful ideas. I can't wait to start sharing these with you. Stay tuned for podcasts and, oh my goodness, affirmation calls and some sort of book study class, something or other, all kinds of stuff. The book published in Kindle version, print version, as well as Audible audio version. So yeah, moving right along here. So today, yeah, we're talking about treatment. And again, this thing called treatment is powerful stuff, guys. I wouldn't be spending a whole month devoting time to going through each step of treatment and and talking about each step in great detail with you unless I didn't believe in the power of treatment. And if you're just tuning in, treatment is what we call affirmative prayer around here. Affirmative prayer is a different kind of a prayer than regular prayer. Regular prayer, most people know of as a beseeching prayer. That's that kind of prayer where we say, God, help me out of this one. If you just get me out of this one, I'll do better, I promise. This kind of prayer is different. This kind of prayer works with a God that is a part of us, that is with us, that we are not separate from. And that's what this second step of treatment is all about. So I'm going to review what's happening with this series and what I talked about last week. Again, if you haven't listened to the first podcast in this series, I recommend that you do so. It's called What is God? And it's the first step in this treatment series. And week 1 is called Recognition. And week 2 is called Unification. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And week 3 is going to be the realization step, where we make our affirmative statements. And week 4 is going to be, I'm going to combine the last 2 steps, which is gratitude and release. And so the steps of treatment, to recap: recognition, unification, realization, thanksgiving, and release. Quick version of those: God is, I am, it's done, thanks, bye. And I just had a cat walk from there he goes. Sorry about that. That's Walter, if you saw him pass by. Okay, let's do this again. God is, I am, it's done, thanks, bye. And yeah, the first podcast in the series was all about that God is step. What is God? And if you don't know what God is for you, listen to that podcast and then figure it out. Do some introspection, do some investigation, do some exploring about what God is for you. And for the purposes of today's podcast and stepping into this second step of treatment, I'm just going to kind of keep things kind of simple here and propose that you think about some of the qualities typically associated with God. You may have heard or read or studied somewhere that a lot of folks like to talk and write about aspects of spirit or qualities of God. There are many. Emmett Fox writes about them. The Fillmores write about them. Ernest Holmes writes about them. All kinds of people write about them. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 aspects of God or qualities of spirit to focus on here. These are just 4 of many. You can pick your own, but I'm going to suggest these today. Unconditional love. Typically, when we think of God, we think of love. That's in fact, love is quite frequently used as another name for God. So unconditional love. Remember that word, unconditional. Joy, peace, and power. So we've got love, joy, peace, and power. And when we think about the title of this podcast and this second step, the title is Who Am I? And I love this second step. It's actually my favorite one. When I go into treatment, I'm already in full recognition of what God is in my life. And so I will quite frequently jump to the second step in my own mind. In fact, I started to do that with this series, and I went, wait a minute, Karen, you've jumped the gun here. You need to talk about this step first. I had to back up and redo some things in that first podcast. But all those qualities of spirit that I just mentioned, there's a real simple thing here. It's the kicker. It's the essence of this second step. It's the thing that will allow you to sink into the feeling tone of this prayer, of affirmative prayer, which without feeling, there's no power. Thought plus feeling equals power. So if you're thinking about what you want, but you ain't feeling it, sorry, no power. You've got to have the feeling. So the kicker of this, the oomph of this, the thing that kicks us into the power, the thing that moves us into the power, the feeling, those qualities of spirit that I just mentioned, love, joy, peace, power. Did you resonate with any of those? Did you feel any of those? Here's the kicker, guys. If any of those resonated with you, if you felt any of those deep in your being, those are you. You would not be able to recognize those qualities of spirit if you weren't those already. You would not be able to see them. You wouldn't be able to feel them. So you've just unified with God. You've taken some aspects of God, some qualities of spirit, and you've called them love and joy and peace and power. You can call them whatever you want. Those are the ones I'm using today. And if you can feel that love, if you can feel that joy, if you can feel that peace, if you can feel some power, you're unified with God. You are that God because you're feeling those qualities of spirit, and you would not be able to feel them unless you also, you wouldn't be able to recognize them unless you also felt them. So they're a part of you. They're a part of you. So here we go. These qualities of love and peace and joy and power, they're within you. And when we recognize that there's that peace of God within us that is manifested as love and peace and joy and power in our lives, when we recognize that and we feel that and we know that, that's the law of attraction kicking in right there. Because when we recognize that, we bring more of that into our lives. Love and peace and power and joy. And when we bring more of that into our lives by recognizing it, we've just done a little baby treatment right there. That's the deal. That's the deal. So I could stop here. I could actually stop there and say, you're good to go. Just you got the first step, you got the second step. Now I'm going to close this podcast out and move on to the third step of treatment. But wait, you knew this was coming, didn't you? If you've listened to my podcast before, you know this is coming. But wait, there's more. Because this step is really about the spiritual truth of who and what we are. It goes deeper than what I just described. This step is about oneness. And oneness is my most favorite of all spiritual principle. In my new book, I have written pages and pages and pages of oneness. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about it. I couldn't stop writing about it. I had to kind of edit things a little bit on that section, but oneness is my favorite piece because oneness is where I get my power. Oneness is where I get my love. Oneness is where I get my joy. Oneness is where I feel my peace. By the way, oneness is also where I get my faith back when I've lost my faith. Just wanted to throw that in there. So this second step of treatment is all about oneness. And we call it unification. And obviously, I'm pretty excited about this second step. Oneness means that ultimately, here's what oneness means to me. Oneness, the spiritual truth of who and what we are, is that each one of us is a unique and individualized manifestation of God. Each one of us is a little godling running around on this earth, here to make manifest the glory of God. Each one of us is here so that God can experience the physical as us. Because God has no other way to experience the physical except through us and all the other stuff that's manifested on this earth, the physical stuff. Now, if you think I've taken things a little too far with this, don't worry about it. A lot of people do. This is where I've gone with it. You're not alone. If you think I'm being blasphemous, that's all right. You can think that. I've heard that too. I don't feel that, but you can. It's okay. Stick with me here. Even people in this movement, practitioners and ministers of this thing called religious science or science of mind, don't take this concept of oneness as far as I do. I'm special like that. They don't. In fact, some of them even refer to God in the male third person pronoun still. I remember when I first started studying this stuff and I heard people and I got the concept of oneness, and I felt it, and it resonated with me because I've never felt comfortable with the concept of a God that was out there and separate from me. I always knew somehow that God was within me and a part of me. And I started hearing people in our movement refer to God in the third person male pronoun, as in he does this and he did that, and God's will this and God's will that. And I'm like, how does that work, given what we teach about oneness? I was shocked. I was shocked. Today, I'm not shocked anymore. Today, I still hear it. You won't ever hear me refer to God in the third person male pronoun. Again, it's okay if you do. The point here is, with this second step and the first step of treatment, you need to know your truth about God. You need to know how you really feel and believe about God. You need to know your truth about your relationship with God. You need to feel it, and it needs to work well for you. Whatever you think and feel about God, however you want to describe it, however you want to envision it in your life, it needs to work well for you. It needs to allow you to live successfully. That's what it's for. If it doesn't do that, then change your belief about it. When you go to the second step and you think about uniting with God, and you think about what God is for you, if it doesn't provide you with a source of nourishment and joy and peace and power and love, I recommend going back and revisiting your concept of what God is for you, because this prayer is not going to work otherwise for you. And it might make you unhappy. If your vision of God doesn't provide some sort of warm, fuzzy sense for you, yeah, change it. God's big enough to handle it all. It really is. God is big enough to handle it all. Now, that said, I have a little story for you. I know an 81-year-old lady who's an emeritus practitioner. She's been a practitioner for a really, really, really long time. And she refers to God in the third person male pronoun. All of her prayers done in the third person male pronoun. God, he does this and he does that, and he's my source, and he blah, 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 blah. And, this woman's been a practitioner for a long time. She lives a successful life. She's 81 years old, and she's still running around on this planet having a ball. Something's working for her. And so I'm not going to try and change that. I'm not going to even try and, whatever. But I asked her about it. I said, how do you do the second step when you refer to a God in the third person male pronoun, which for me implies a God that's separate from me? And she said, oh, that's an easy one. Typical 81-year-old lady. She said, oh, that's an easy one. She said, I marry God. That's all. She just said, I marry God. And she said, it feels really good to do that. And I feel unified with God when I marry God in that second step. And when I do that, I'm ready to move on to the third one. And I'm like, okay. So if you refer to God in the third person male pronoun, and that's comfortable for you and that works for you, just marry God in this second step. You can do that. You can do that. The point is, it needs to work for you. It needs to give you comfort when nothing else can. It needs to give you faith when nothing else can. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. And this second step is where we get the power that goes into our words in the third step. So yeah, we've got to feel that kinship with the God of our understanding in this second step. This is the jumping point into that affirmative step where we get this power, where we know that our words will be made manifest, that our words are manifest already, even as we speak them. So that's the key with this second step about unification and feeling one with God and having it be a part of you and you a part of it. And if it's a male pronoun, third person he, go for it. Go for it. And if you want to try marrying God in the second step, go for it. Do it. Whatever works for you. The point in this second step is to get to that place where you know that you're a part of God and it's a part of you, where you know that God is working in your life, where you feel this God working in your life without hesitation and without doubt. You feel this. When you have that feeling step, then you're ready to move on to the third step. And so I'll just give you a little brief introduction of the third step, which will be in the next podcast. Our affirmation steps are always said in present tense, and meaning they're happening right now. They're not going to happen in the future. They're happening right now. And I always like to express my affirmative statement in terms of the feelings that I'm going to feel as whatever it is I'm praying for is happening, like happiness and joy and peace, enthusiasm and energy. That's what I've been asking for in prayer. And some people were taught a little differently. They were taught in that affirmative step to ask for things, and it's perfectly okay to ask for things. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I've asked for things. I'll give you a story. I asked for a thing once, and I had to ask someone else to do it for me because it wasn't working for me. I didn't believe it. I couldn't know it as true. So of course it wasn't working. Now, the thing I asked for, I was trying to sell a commercial piece of property. It wasn't selling. Not only was it not selling, it'd been on the market for months, and I hadn't even had one visitor come look at it. My real estate agent's like, I don't know. Nobody's coming to look at it. It's a great piece of property. No one's coming to look at it. Finally, in desperation, and notice I got to get desperate to ask for this kind of stuff, I go to the most powerful prayer that I knew at the time. The most powerful prayer. In other words, the person I knew who could pray for this thing and make it so. At the time, that person was my father. And I'd seen my dad pray for things and have them be manifest that absolutely amazed me over the years. I knew if he prayed for this thing, it was going to happen. So I went to him. I said, Daddy, I need some help. I said, my commercial building's up for sale and nobody's not even coming to look at it. So I'd like you to pray for quick sale of my commercial building for a fair price. And he said, okay, fine, it's done. The next day, I got an offer on that building. The next day, after months, with no action whatsoever. So I have another story for you. I have a friend who works for me photographing weddings. He comes with me to my weddings and takes the pictures. And we had done a wedding a couple of days previous to that. And he called me in a panic. I'd never seen this man. I've been working with him for about 5 years now. Never seen him in this state. He's usually very, very even. He was panicked. He said, Karen, I've turned around. I'm headed back to the wedding venue. I left a camera bag there. And I'm just hoping it's still going to be there when I get there. I'd be sick if that camera bag disappeared. It has a Hasselblad lens in it that they no longer make. I mean, this is a Hasselblad lens for a Hasselblad camera. They don't even make these lenses anymore. So we would not be able to replace it. And he said, it's got a brand new fisheye lens for my Nikon that I've never used before. It's brand new. And I'd just be sick if I lost this camera bag. And I said, okay, I'm knowing for you that this bag is safe and you're going to recover it when you get there. And he's like, yeah, right, whatever. He didn't believe me, but I did. About an hour later, I get a call from him. He said, I've got the bag and it's fully intact. Nothing's missing from it. And I said, well, yeah, I'm not surprised. He said, I don't know how you did that. I said, well, you don't need to know. I did it. And he told me this story about how the bag was found. And it was found by a visitor from France, I think it was, who found the bag, opened it up, saw my photographer's name and number in there, and was getting ready to call him and saw him frantically rushing down the trail towards where the bag was left. And he called out and he said, called his name. He said, "Are you him?" And my photographer friend said, "Yeah." He said, "Is this yours?" And my photographer friend said, "Oh my God, yes." So, yeah, got the bag. So, and again, I've got enthusiasm and energy now that I haven't had in years, simply because I have had my prayer partners know it for me. So, this stuff works, guys. It works. So, first step, recognize God. Second step, unify with it. Next podcast, we'll move on to the affirmative step, the making of our statements, the realization. So I thank you so much for listening, and I thank you for your support. And I am knowing fearlessly Pharaoh living for me and for you. And in the show notes, I'm going to have some links there. There's a link to the website. There's a link to the previous podcast in this series. I'm going to throw that in there too. And a link to where you can support the podcast, a couple links, one on PayPal. I'm going to throw the Venmo link in there too. And also Buzzsprout, because you can become a member and support monthly for as little as just a couple dollars a month. Every little bit is appreciated. And I appreciate you so much. And I hope you have gotten some value out of this podcast. Thank you very much.